Mindful Coach podcast. So welcome to this edition of the Mindful Coach podcast. I'm your host, Brett Hill, and with me today, I have a special guest, Kiri Mohan. She helps women freelancers who have background in the corporate world take their contracting business from surviving to thriving. So this is moving from a job in the corporate world or whatever world you happen to be in, feeling the call to do things on your own, to be in a contracting business, to get out there, be successful in that world that's yours. She's the woman to talk to. Her corporate to contract core and collective programs guide women growing their freelance business to set them up for success, earn an income over six figures, and get more time back in their day. Now, that's quite a collection of achievements. She knows that there's a way to have a career, flexible schedule, and get paid what you deserve. Let's underscore that. And her framework teaches you how to do that. When not working on her courses or leading women, she's a podcast host, and she has the Freelance to Freedom podcast, and she loves to drink tea and read books. So welcome to the show, Kiri.
Thank you so much for having me, Brett. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. We talked earlier, it just felt like a good fit for the coaches that we have in our audience. And I know you specialize in helping women. A lot of things we'll be talking about will morph to any professional in the field. But I really like it that you're specifically called into that world because, the support that's needed there, transitioning. And so let's start with a little bit about your story. You were in the corporate world and you decided to become a contractor. And what was that like for you? What were the steps you went through to get from, I'm going to do something, I think I want to do something, to getting it done, to having a program that helps other people do that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been a journey, not to say that lightly, but it has been, because I'm kind of a little bit risk averse. I'm not one of those entrepreneurs who says I'm going to go all in. I'm going to quit my job and I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to start from zero.
Just jumping off the cliff.
No.
Huh?
No, that's not me. So what I kind of did was I heard about freelancing, and this was 2012 or 2011 when I first heard about it. And I was like, wait, you can do all this stuff online? That's interesting. But then I found out, you had to get your own clients. You had to charge rates. You wouldn't get a steady paycheck sometimes. I was like, no way, that's not for me. But then I started thinking about it some more, and you feel this calling to do something. And I said, okay, well, let me just try it. I have a full-time job. I have income. What's the harm of just kind of dipping my toes in the water? So I tried a bunch of different copywriting, newsletters, social media management, just these standard, what was going on back then, these very typical freelancing roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up really liking it. And I started really finding it fun. And I loved the business aspect of it. And for someone who says they're not a risk taker, I actually was in this business. I was trying different things. I was seeing what sticks, what works, what can I do to make this grow? And before you knew it, I ended up focusing and honing in on executive assistant work because that's what I had done in my corporate background. And so it was easier to get clients because they said, oh, you have the experience, right? So I ended up being able to, when I really put my heart and soul into it and decided, let's see if I can make this a full-time job, I was able to quit within 9 months of really getting myself out there and marketing. Wow. And yeah, it was really, really good. And I was making a little less, to be clear, than my full-time role, but within 2 months of quitting, I surpassed it. Because I had 8 hours a day that I could focus on it as opposed to just weekends.
As opposed to a side hustle
evenings.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that was really gratifying. And I tried different ways to grow the business. I created an agency. I created a referral program. I did all these kind of different ways to earn money. And I had people coming to me. At first, it was just friends and friends of friends. How do you do this? I want to learn. And I started helping people. But where I stumbled is a lot of these people were trying to mimic my profession, which was an executive assistant, a freelance executive assistant. So I was trying to teach these people these skills. And I actually gave up on the coaching. I was like, I hate this. They're not learning. They're not understanding. and then time went on and people started asking again. And I began to realize I wasn't teaching people skills. That's not where I should have been focusing. What I should have been focusing on was specifically the business. How do you run an online business that is service-based? So consultancy, contracting, freelancing, whatever that means to you, that is not product-based, right? I can't teach you product. I don't know.
Right. So this isn't like, you're buying a book, but you're buying a service.
Right, exactly. And I realized that what I had and the knowledge I had was this understanding of the psychology of the buyer, this understanding of how, like, a business foundation, how you set yourself up with marketing and branding is so important to attract the right people to you. So you're doing less work on the outreach. And though outreach is important, how to set up boundaries properly in contracts, and how to make sure that you set up your pricing structure so that you're not getting run all over by clients. So you know who's the most important client and you know who's not the most important client. And so a lot of it just came back to psychology and business foundations and building this very structured, intentional business. So that's when I started to go in that route of more of a business coach specifically for service-based providers. And P.S., I have helped men in my private coaching. By the way, I have. I market towards women because I still think women have a long way to go to catch up. And I still think that women get the short end of the stick in their roles in life. They're expected to be the caregiver. They're expected to stay home with the children. And sometimes daycare is just really expensive. And women are the ones that usually end up giving up their job. Why? Because they make less money than the male. So it makes more sense if their partner is making more money that they're the ones that give up. It's just a cycle. So I love being able to help women break that cycle to be there for their families, but also be making a lot of money, the money that they want to make. So that's why I target women, but I have helped men.
All about that. I love that very much, because certainly, in family situations, particularly, that becomes a balance that's very, very hard to manage. And so, a woman who can be sort of the primary caretaker often, whether, by choice or by design, or just that's the way they find themselves. And then also needing to make an income, that's a big deal. And so the work that you're doing to help in that area is really amazing. And I'm happy to hear about it. And that's one of the reasons we're talking, because I love to support people who are doing that, working in ways to help those who need the support. And then also, like you said, the information, the area you're working is just broadly applicable to lots of people. So, to those people out there who are listening, who are in jobs, or they're considering moving into more of a, a contracting role, and let's define what we mean by contracting a little bit, so in case people don't know that. How would you say you think of it when you say, "Oh, you're a contractor"? What kinds of things might that encompass?
Yeah. So actually, legally, an independent contractor is anyone who's not a W-2 employee. So your roofer could be a contractor. We call them contractors often, right? General contractors. But when I refer to online contractors, independent contractors, it's usually people who are working for themselves. So it means you can be a consultant, like you can take the knowledge you have and go consult at different companies. You could be a coach, right? And you can coach people, individuals, organizations, teams. You could be a freelancer, who is someone who has services and helps with those services. And that's generally when I refer to independent contractor. That's the group that I'm referring to, not though technically, like, your roofer is a freelancer or something like that. Or they are a service-based provider. They're not online. So I'm specifically talking to online service-based providers.
Okay, so someone who basically then says, "Hey, I'm a coach. I'm a mindfulness coach. I'm an organizational coach, and I want to start selling my services to other organizations, and then also to individuals." That would come into this category of, like, someone who's, I'm a contractor to these companies providing services.
Correct. So you don't get healthcare. Obviously you have to make your own rates. You have to make your own hours. You have to pay your own taxes. all of
Yeah.
that. Yep.
So just in terms of the orientations around that, like what are the kinds of considerations that, if someone is sitting in a job right now and they're thinking, I'm called to do some work on my own. I really like you were like, beginning to explore, and the thing I liked about your story is you said, I'm not really a risk taker, but then
No.
you got into what you were doing and you said, but in this context, I discovered something about myself. I am kind of a risk taker in this world.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, oh, I learned something new about myself. That's the fun part for me because you get to experience yourself in a new way. And I bet that was quite an awakening in a way.
Yeah. And another thing I always say is I'm not creative because I think of creativity in terms of the arts. I think of like music and art, like drawing and, sculpture and stuff like that. But I realize I'm very creative when it comes to my business. I always like tweaking and changing and trying different things to see what works and what doesn't work.
That's really fun.
But your question was more like, what do people have to think about, right?
Yeah.
When they're leaving a corporate job, if they feel called to be a coach or consultant or anything like that. And, you really have to think about, sounds cliche, but who are you marketing to? The more specific you get, the more likely you're going to have people who, resonate with what you say and that you like working with. Because if you're going to be leaving an employer that you might possibly not like, even if you do like them, if you leave them and you go with someone even worse, you're going to be like, what am I doing? Why did I leave my job? I'm like getting paid pennies and I'm overworked, right? Like you have to make sure you're pulling in the right people. And a lot of that has to do with branding and marketing and your pricing strategy. I think often people go into the service-based profession and they say, well, you know what? Let's see. I'm not good at math. They suppose they calculate their salary, their yearly annual salary. They change it to hourly and they say, okay, well, I was making like, let's say $60 to $75 an hour, $60 an hour. They say, okay, I was making $60 an hour. So therefore that's what I should be charging.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're just setting themselves up for failure because they don't realize that they're going to take back so little of that into their pocket. And they're going to be working all the time, more than 8 hours to try to even come close to what they were making before. So they have to have tons of clients. So it's a rookie mistake. And sometimes people don't even realize it. And this is like the way they continue to work. And then they reach a point where they're like, well, I guess I got to charge like $150 an hour to make what I want. But then their clientele is saying, I don't want to pay you $150 an hour. Like, I mean, again, it depends on the profession. I'm trying to use easy numbers here.
Sure.
But if your worth, quote unquote, is $60 an hour, and all of a sudden you're trying to charge people $150 an hour, psychologically, they're going to say, no, that doesn't make sense. I can find someone cheaper. So then that's where I teach people, like there's a strategy around pricing that will get you what you need and what you want. And still after taxes, after expenses, you're still taking home and putting stuff in your pocket. That's really important to you. So it's a lot of like little things that I think a lot of newbies don't realize could set you up for success or failure.
Sure. So pricing and like trying to figure all that out ahead of time before you quit your job would be one of your recommendations in a way. Did I hear that right? Like just sit down and figure out.
Yes. And just who you want your client to
and who
be,
your market. So all the marketing, if you take any marketing class and, like you said, it's kind of a cliche, like who's your target market and like figure that out. What, if someone says, what kind of work do you do? What do you say? I know in the Mindful Coach Association, I have a form that people fill out to put their profile up. And one of it is like, tell us about yourself. And a lot of coaches hit that form and they go, how do I describe what I do? You know what I mean?
I know. And you got to that's really practice. I think I tell people to go to networking events to practice. Like even if that's your market's not there, practice saying what you do.
Yeah.
Right. So for instance, when I was doing it, I realized that when I said I was a contract executive assistant, people would be like, huh? When I said I was a freelance executive assistant, this is pre-pandemic, people were just like, what? I don't understand. So then I started saying like, okay, I'm an executive virtual assistant. And they'd still kind of say what? And I say, well, an executive assistant in the office, it's the same thing. I just do everything online.
Yeah.
And that was the easiest way for people to understand. But if I was trying and hitting a wall with all these different descriptions, and so even now when I talk to people, I say I'm a business coach, but I specifically help consultants, freelancers, people who use services as part of my coaching.
Yeah.
And then I leave it at that. And then they're like, oh, okay, service like what? Okay, well, if you have a skill set from, what do you do? I say, what do you do? And they say, blah, blah, blah. I say, okay, well, take that. Imagine you were created your own business and you're an online doing that. That's the kind of person I would help.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to make that connection for them, or they're not going to understand. And you have to make it as simple as possible. Ignore Google, ignore what the industry says your name should be, because you just want people to understand it.
Yeah.
So once they understand it, it clicks and they go, oh yeah, okay, maybe I could use your help, or maybe I know someone.
Yeah, that's really,
that was a tangent.
Really,
I went off a little bit there.
No, that's great. Keep going off, because these are great jewels. Yeah, so it seems like the idea of like practicing what it is you've got to say and how you say it, and like you said, realizing that what you're trying to do is cognitively connect your value to a benefit that they can picture and go, oh, I could benefit from that, and finding the language that works for that. Yeah.
Because you are stuck in this world where you understand your industry and you know what you do, and you think everyone does. But trust me, as soon as you get to a networking event and you try telling to people, like, there are a lot of people out there who don't know what a copywriter is. Mm-hmm. You say, oh, I write the words on a web page. And they're like, oh, okay. I make it sellable. Yeah, but there are a lot of people out there who just don't know what the copywriter is. Yeah. It's surprising, but you really have to, like, I don't want to say dumb it down, but you have to translate it in a way that people say, oh, that's easy. Okay, now I understand. Because they're going to glaze over if you say something that they're like, oh.
Right. I hear what you're saying, and and it's true in some way. You know what you said. You don't want to dumb it down, but what you do want to do is make it understandable so that you can get to the next question, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like I read some real good advice about copy in a marketing class I took, which said the purpose of each paragraph or each sentence is to get the reader to read the next one. And so it's like very much structured in walking people through a sequence so that you take them from something very simple at the top, like I put words on a page, to the next level deep. Oh, really? What kind of words? What business? To the next thing. What makes you special to getting it to a place where they really get your value?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would even take it a step further and say the point of writing good marketing copy is to make the person say, "That's me. I need that."
Yes, exactly. Right. And so it's like
you could say, "I write words on a page," or you could say, "You need someone who is going to make your page stand out due to XYZ, right?"
Yeah, yeah.
That makes someone say, "That's me. I need that."
Yeah. Are you struggling to say what your value is? That's what I do, and I put those words on the page for you. It's like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah, because when you say in the same marketing course, they were all about this was about Facebook ads. I took a really in-depth course on that. It was really a ton of fun, expensive, but a ton of fun. And and one of the things they were really hot on at the beginning of the sequence was focusing on the pain. Now, as a mindfulness coach, who I work in that world, I have this little bit of a rub where I don't really want to appeal kind of to the lower aspect. I call it lower, and I mean neurologically lower, not ethically, aspects of our neurology where you're going, ooh, shock and awe, kind of like, the horror of the terrible way, like really the jangly things, because there was just so much of that. So I don't want to kind of be in that soup, so to speak. But it's real that when people are suffering from burnout, for example, that they're looking for answers, that they're looking for ways to not be suffering. And so when you can speak to...
There's a way that, like, though, I think to go on this, sorry to interrupt, but quickly, I think when I teach people, it's like, do you want more or less than? There's two ways you can market yourself, right? You could be expansive or you could be reductive. And you find in, say, like the weight loss industry, it's very clear that people want reductive. Do you want to lose weight, right? But then there are some places, like in terms of money management, do you want to save money or do you want to get more money and have abundance. And those speak to two different kinds of people. So for those listening, that's also something to think about when you're thinking about the client you want to work with. How do they think about themselves? How do they shop? Do they shop for reductive or expansive, more or less? Like, if you're overworked, do you want more time in your life or do you want less clients? Right? It's the same coin.
No, I hear what you're saying. That's really beautifully said. Because it's like in the world of mindfulness and helping people kind of connect to a more beautiful moment, if you will. Then there's people who want to do that because they're suffering, and then there's people who want more beauty and connectedness and engagement in their life. So there's the suffering aspect is like too much anxiety, too much distress, and whereas the attractive aspect of that is like connect, have more beauty in your everyday, connect deeply with people.
Yes.
I hear what you're saying. That's
exactly
really,
same coin, just two different sides.
But the key point I think you said is like, who do you want to work with, right? Do you want to work with people?
And I mean, there's no shame also in like experimenting.
Well, yes,
to say
exactly.
like what is getting you more results? Are the people coming to you? Are those that want the reductive or the expansive? And then
that's
play
a really
with that
key
a little
point.
bit.
It's like one of the powerful questions that was put to me once was like, who is naturally drawn to you? Like, what are if you could write out a list of the characteristics of the kind of people that you work best with, what are they? And then that's a guide for where your sweet spot is.
Yes.
So what would you say then to someone? So hold on, back up. So we have for someone who's like considering stepping into an independent contractor role, we have figure out your resources, figure out your price point. Think about that. We have work on your pitch, if you will, like practice, like rehearse that, and your pricing. I think I mentioned that. I rolled it into the first point, but there's like, your audience. What do you want to do? Your price point. Doing some work around that. How much do you need to make? And then also practicing your pitch. What else goes on this list of things that someone might be able to do to get themselves aligned to being able to engage more fully in a contracting role? Is there some other...
To engage more fully, meaning like to step out
to kind of
role, or just to embody more of the
let's just say, in the preparation to get to step out more fully. You mentioned earlier rookie mistakes. Like, is there anything else on your rookie mistake list?
Yeah. I mean, don't be embarrassed about putting yourself out there, and put yourself out there as much as possible. Too many people say, well, I'm on LinkedIn. Okay. And no, that's not enough. Like you get I get it. There people are influencers out there and they get all their business from one social media platform, but they put their all into it. Do you have your time to put your all into it? Okay. Not just half an hour. So then where can you, like, let's even look back on like some of my clients. Where do they get their clients? They look around, and I make them look around, but they will look for like forums that people hang out still online associations where there might be a lot of their ideal clients. They look at networking events, local networking events. They look at Facebook groups. Are there Facebook groups where their ideal client would be hanging out? Are there like referral programs? So sometimes in your own network, right, there might be, like, I was working with someone who was a website designer, and I had to reach out to these website designers who were fully booked. And they were like, oh yeah, jump on my newsletter. Whenever I get a client I can't take on, I throw out an email. Right. I met someone who's a matchmaker for VAs, which I didn't even know she existed. Cool. And all she does is send out, and she had high quality, high paying clients, and she would send out newsletters. They weren't frequent. They were maybe like 3 a month, 2 a month, but like get on those kind of think outside the box when it comes to clients. We are so stuck in this social media world where we think everything has to be like social media platforms, and that's the only way we're going to get clients. That's one way to get clients.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to grow your business and you want to grow it quickly, don't be afraid to post on social media. Don't be afraid to tell all your friends and family. Don't be afraid to go into forums and associations and put yourself out there and provide like valuable content. So people, your name is always on the top of mind in all these little places. Because the more active you are and the more you're marketing yourself and putting yourself out there, someone's going to remember you eventually and say, oh yeah, right? Like I need that person. And that's very true. I think for so many people, a rookie mistake is thinking, oh, well, I need to be on Instagram or I need to be on TikTok or I need to be on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it is. And they stay there and that's it. And then they just do one post, 2 posts a day. And they're like, why am I not getting clients?
It needs to be more targeted, right? That's what I hear you saying.
Well, targeted and just put yourself out there. Just like I said, think outside the box because you can be targeted in your social media market, but so are 100,000 other people, probably more than that, who are doing the same thing you do.
Yeah.
So how do you build this, have a newsletter, right? Like a lot of newbies don't have newsletters. They don't know what to do. So that's something I help them with because newsletters are very important for keeping you top of mind.
Yeah.
And they're like one of the few ways you can directly reach people's inbox so they remember you and they know who you are.
One of my favorite newsletters is this newsletter. This guy does an email every day, every single day. And he is short. And it's always to the point. And I really like it as a result of that. And so his service, he charges like $20,000 to have you look at your website. He'll look at your website and tell you what to put on it. So one engagement. So he's a big number, right? But he's in your inbox every day with something pretty cool about it and why, this is the thing. And he talked also about his designing this, where he just sat down for spent 3 days designing 365 posts, put them on automatic, and boom, he's in everybody's inbox for a year, and he can forget about it, and it continues to be top of mind for all the people. And I have to say, from time to time, when I think about, I really need to up-level my website, who do I think of? That guy. Now I can't afford that guy, but that's the guy that I think of. So to your point, it keeps people top of mind. And that's a very creative strategy that I really appreciate because you don't see that very often. So you have a podcast too. Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, Freelance to Freedom. And it's for people who are overworked, like the freelancers, the consultants, the service providers. I just say freelance to freedom because it sounds so good. But it really is for anyone who's service-based provider. And they're little mini episodes of my coaching. So if you like what you hear and you want to go and listen to the podcast, you'll find these little coaching snippets on one topic, right? Like what I'm going to talk about, how that could benefit, how you could change your business based on that. So it's like getting a little sneak peek of working with me.
Nice. And your website, corporate2contract.com?
Corporate2contract.com.
Yeah.
Or you can go to kirimohan.com. They both direct to the same place. And I do want to say, for those of you who are starting out or in the process of starting out and you want to learn from me, I do have a self-paced program where you can sign up, and it's relatively inexpensive compared to working with me directly, and you get to learn all my secrets, everything I teach.
All your secrets
how
revealed.
To attract those high-income clients.
Yay. Well, it's been great talking to you. I just really enjoy your mission and your story and the work that you're doing. And I feel like it's really important, particularly with the, empowering women. And so is there anything else you'd like to say to coaches who are considering moving into to people who are considering being more full-time coaches from their current employment state?
Yeah, be creative. I mean, think outside the box. Don't listen to what they say. Whatever your industry is saying, there's usually the people who are successful are the ones who didn't listen and who tried many different things. So if you're just sitting there saying, I have to charge $200 an hour and I'll take these calls one a day and then eventually I'll fill up, try something different. What if you had a coaching engagement package that spanned or different options, right? Think about how can you do this without being tied to I don't know why. Because I've seen this in coaching. A lot of coaching communities like, oh, I charge $200 an hour. Well, what if you did group coaching? What if you didn't say it was group coaching, but you marketed it a different way to have people sign up for it, right? Like it's all about being creative and thinking outside the box, because that will get you further and you won't be like struggling all the time.
Yeah, thank you for that very much. We'll put all your contact details in the show notes so people look up Kiri and connect with her to learn about how to get this done. And so you can step into actuating the value that you can bring to the world. It's really important. And also the Mindful Coach Association, if you aren't a member of the Mindful Coach Association, head out there and join. It doesn't cost anything, and you can connect and collaborate with other really, really courageous, powerful, skillful coaches doing great work in the world. Connect, and peer coaching opportunities come up. Referral situations, new business ventures have happened because of the associations that happen there. So check it out. So thank you, Kiri. It's been great having you as a guest.
Thank you.
The Mindful Coach Podcast is a service of the Mindful Coach Association.